Okay, that's better. My name is Hein Nergard, and I work in Ericsson Television, which used to be Tandberg Television. I started in Tandberg Television 13 or more than 13 years ago. And I'm now working in the system or technical sales support team with main focus on designing head-end systems. Let's see. So I'm going to spend about half an hour talking about different considerations to take when you're launching DTT, which obviously is the main focus here today. And I also then want to look at Ericsson and Ericsson Television's role in DTT and how we can help you all. So first of all, some considerations to make in DTT. This slide shows the different blocks representing key decision points to make when you move to digital television. They're roughly in the order from top to bottom of when you need to make the decisions. So the first one is the objective for moving to digital terrestrial. This is a decision made on a national level, and it's already been made by the Albanian government to obviously launch terrestrial TV. It's all about freeing up space in the frequency band to launch more services, more advanced services for the end customers. So that's a tick. That's done. The next one is to decide the terrestrial standardization. This is also already done by the Albanian government, and this is a decision that is made with different countries in Europe, but also with the ITU, the International Telecommunication Union. And it's all about cooperation there, and the decision obviously here is to go with T2, DVB-T2. The next key decision point is the frequency planning. Again, this is something that has been done in Albania. It's done again with the ITU. It follows the Digital Broadcasting Frequency Plan, which is included in the GE06 agreement. So frequencies has been allocated around Europe to the different countries, and it's been a certain range of frequencies has been allocated to Albania. The other decision that has been made is to go with a single frequency network, and linked to that, I just want to highlight a couple of points. So the first consideration to make or consider is that a single frequency network does not necessarily mean that each multiplex has a single frequency across the whole country. Because of border coordination with different countries, some frequencies might already be taken by these countries. So even though we refer to it as a single frequency network, it might actually require 2, 3, maybe 4 frequencies per multiplex. The other consideration to make is that when you're launching terrestrial services, most of the frequencies will already be taken up by the analog frequencies. So you might not be able to launch all the terrestrial multiplexes before you free up space, so before you shut down some of the analog frequencies. So you might not be able to roll out all your multiplexes at the same time. And both of these points are key points to remember in the rollout of your network. I expect that both of these has and is being considered in Albania, but if not, then Ericsson as a system integrator could help you do that. Okay, so the next key consideration point is a network planning. Now, I believe that is work in progress in Albania. So I just want to highlight a couple of points there as well. So the network planning is about transmitters and the placement of the transmitters, the numbers of transmitters, and the power they radiate. And the key point of this is to make sure that the network covers the desired population in Albania. I understand initially, the initial phase, the plan is to cover 85% of the Albanian population, growing to 90, up to 95% in later phases. Now this is important for the success of the rollout, because if you don't reach these percentages, the DTT will not be a success. So at the bottom here is a key point, and that is to make sure that the network planning, so the planning of the network, is kept as a separate tender from the planning of the network infrastructure. So these should be kept as two separate tenders, and the reasons for that is that if you have, if they are combined into one tender, each company responding to that tender will come up with different network plans. And the network plans they come up with will then be tied to that individual vendor. Okay? Also, the transmitter vendors will not, because they are using these individual plans, they will not bid to the same plan, meaning it will be impossible to compare the bids from between the vendors. You can't compare apples for apples when they're all different. And because frequency planning is expensive and time-consuming, the transmitter vendors will have to make some estimations when they bid for their transmitter equipment, which means there will be estimated plans with estimated pricing. So basically, if you combine these two together, you will end up with different estimated plans which are impossible to compare. Is this clear? Are you with me so far? Yeah? Okay, any questions? Okay. So if this is something that you need help with, Ericsson got a lot of experience in this field, and we can help out if that is needed. So the next consideration to make is to select the services to launch. And the services you launch will have a direct impact on the infrastructure, so like cameras, encoders, receivers, etc., on the network, and on the receiver devices. So when you're considering new services, it's critical to understand what the consumer wants. So first of all, what he wants today, but also what he wants in the future. Because if you don't understand what they want and deliver what they won't actually take up the service, and the DTT rollout will then not be a success. So the obvious service here is a linear TV. That's what we watch every day on a regular basis. The other ones are considerations like, okay, do you launch HD services? Do you add some services on the top, like time shifting, for example? And the choices you make will affect the infrastructure and your set-top boxes. So it's critical to understand the consumer, what he wants, and for that, that's where the Ericsson Consumer Labs come into play. So Ericsson Consumer Labs does research into consumer habits. And the latest global study done recently included 7,000 individuals and was done as a representation for the whole world. Two key points from that study was that 93% of consumers still watch linear TV, which is great news, right? Because it means DTT will actually have a role to play. Because linear TV is a key part of a DTT rollout. But it also highlighted that 70% of the consumers do time shifting every week. So by time shifting, I mean things like recording content and watching it later, or download, streaming from the internet, or streaming and saving on a device. So it's important to understand what the consumer and the consumer trends, because it affects how you build the systems. So for example, if you launch a system that doesn't do HD or is not built up for HD or isn't prepared to do things like additional services that the customers are likely to use, like time shift, then the consumers will not pay into that. So in addition, if the infrastructure is not ready for it and you want to launch it at a later stage, you then might need to swap out all the infrastructure and start again. And most importantly, if the receivers, the set-top boxes in the consumer's homes are not ready to use these new services, then they might have to, or they will have to buy a new set-top box when you launch the new services, and the consumers might not be able to do that. They might not see the value in it. And so when you launch new services at a later stage, the consumer might not pick it up, and then the new services will not become a success. So we've seen how these services you're launching then affect the transmitters network and the receiver devices and also the infrastructure. So I want to take a closer look on the core video infrastructure, which is probably the area where most of us here today, presenting here today, is working. So I want to look at as central head end as an example. So I won't go into too much details here, but I do like to point out that Ericsson and Ericsson Television can work as a prime integrator. So we can take the responsibility from the whole chain, from the beginning, starting with the cameras, to the transmitters and to the end customers as well. So just quickly go through this. So source generation would be where you collect your content. It could be cameras in news gathering vans. It could be studios creating content. But also it could be already generated content from satellite or maybe coming in over IP. So these services or this content is fed into the head end where you will have professional receivers receiving the content and prepare that for re-encoding. So if it's modulated from satellite, the receivers will demodulate it. If it's scrambled, the receiver will descramble it, and it will also then decode it into baseband video and audio. So those services are then fed into the encoders, and encoders is where that's really ex-Tandberg and now Ericsson Television's core competence. And high-quality encoding is really key in DTT because it's all about compressing the video, and the video takes up lots of space or bandwidth. So compressing the video, excuse me, means that you can get more services in, or also other services like we saw earlier, things like push rod, for example. So high-quality encoders is really key. From the encoders, the services are fed into the multiplexer. The multiplexer basically takes the individual services and put them together into a single transport stream or multiple transport streams. It's then fed into the T2 gateway. I won't go into details there because you will hear more about them later after the break. That's right, Enensis, I think, is here today. Yeah, good. From the gateway, it goes into the distribution network, which could be based on microwave, for example, to the transmitter sites. And Ericsson, again, has a key products in the microwave area with their microlinks. And then at the transmission sites, the signals will go into the modulators and then to the transmission towers. Again, this is areas where other partners will talk about later. So at the bottom, we're showing control systems which Ericsson would integrate, either our own Encompass control or a more overall control product. And in the orange boxes, you've got potential new services that needs to be considered when you build a headend, because, as I said earlier, the infrastructure needs to be there really for the future. But the key point to remember here is that Ericsson can take the full prime integration role for all of this, and then working with the best partners in the industry to create the best system. So, as I mentioned, Ericsson can take the full prime integration responsibility of the project, and that a large part of that would be the service offering. So Ericsson would provide full services from the beginning of the project, so planning and consulting, through the integration and rollout of the system, to the end of the project where it goes into daily operation. And it's a global functionality in Ericsson. We have a massive services organization, but we also have representatives locally with, obviously, our business partner, tbs96, and also the local Ericsson office. So Ericsson has been trusted to do planning, building, running and enhancing more networks than any other company in the world. And Ericsson's technology leadership, business understanding, and extensive experience with managing telecom projects means that Ericsson is a market leader today in the telecom services. So truly a global partner to trust. So in DTT, Ericsson has been there from the beginning, all the way from the world's first OFDM modulator back in 1996, up to launching different projects all over the world up till today. So our experience is best shown through our worldwide references. And this is a collection or a sample of our references, be it in DVB-T and T2, or also other international terrestrial standards. So before I summarize, I have a couple of slides on one of these, DNA in Finland. So it's a reference case for us. So DNA Finland is the third largest operator in Finland, and in 2009 they were allocated or given licenses to distribute 2 terrestrial multiplexes. Ericsson was awarded the prime integration or prime integrator role in this project. And this project was a huge success. In 18 months from the licenses were given, just after the T2 standard was released, DNA Finland launched their services. Now, what's the a key point here is that this system in DNA Finland is very similar to the situation in Albania. It's based on DVB-T2, it's MPEG-4, and it's SFN networks. So clearly Ericsson do have the competence that you would need in Albania for this rollout. And this project won 2 awards at IBC in 2010. But of course, Ericsson didn't do this all by themselves. As I mentioned earlier, we work with lots of different partners. And in this project, we worked together with these partners. So the key to the success was a close cooperation with DNA Finland, the end customer, but also all these partners. And Ericsson is working with a lot of different partners, and we would work with partners to make sure that the best system is used, so the best equipment is used for the different parts of the systems. So just to summarize, why to choose Ericsson? Well, first of all, we have the proven technology and the solutions. We have unmatched experience in DTT rollouts. We have local presence. We have highly skilled global professional services organization to take a project from the beginning to the end and see it all through. And last but not least, we are a full end-to-end system integrator working with the best partners. Thank you.